Hey everybody. Today I'm going to continue my account of what happened at the University of Tennessee. If you are just arriving, please watch part 1 and part 2 to make sense of what I'm talking about, and I will put links in the description for that. So, following the conflict at my group, my anxiety is skyrocketing. I can barely sleep, and I lost 10 pounds in a week. I had to go to my doctor for high blood pressure, and for the first time in my life, I asked for anxiety medication. After some thought, I decided that the best thing that I could do was be proactive. I thought that if I asked for a support plan rather than waiting for one to be imposed on me, like a punishment, that this would demonstrate that I wanted to work cooperatively, and that would be my best shot at clearing up the misunderstandings the faculty had about my Buddhism. Also, according to the course handbook, and I'll just quote it here, if you are experiencing problems related to your relationships with students or faculty, please speak with the person with whom you are concerned first. Then reach out to a faculty member if you need support working together to resolve any issues. Well, I tried directly addressing the issues in group, and I had spoken with 2 professors about the situation in my small group, but I wasn't getting any solid support on how to resolve the conflict there. Things had definitely not improved despite my best efforts. If anything, it seemed that I was expected to take full responsibility for the entire situation, and my personal needs were irrelevant. I have raised 4 kids. Problems are rarely one-sided, and I don't have an issue owning my side of things. Today, I know that critical theories teaches that problems are one-sided, and that if you are white, hetero, and gender normative, you're the responsible party in any conflict with a minority because you're privileged and they're marginalized. And God help you if you're also male. At the time, I thought asking for the support plan would also be the forthright way to, get help addressing the conflict. Unfortunately, it's not how it played out. I was told that I didn't need to go back to group because it was harmful to me and my group mates. While I was a little relieved, this didn't seem in line with either the therapeutic mission of small group work or with the handbook's guidance for faculty to help resolve issues. And, that just didn't seem quite right to me. So, for the last 5 weeks of the semester, I found myself having regular meetings with 2 of the faculty members, my advisor and one of my professors. Starting from the very first meeting, when I tried to explain to my advisor that the thinking practice I mentioned earlier in the semester was Buddhism, the other professor cuts me off and calls me defensive. From there forward, my thinking is called out repeatedly. She goes on to say that my kind of thinking, which I had already pointed out to her in a prior meeting, is Buddhism. She equated it with colorblind racism and genderblind transphobia. It goes without saying that racism and transphobia are unacceptable. What's completely unclear is exactly what counts as racism and transphobia. I start to say that my thinking practice doesn't prevent me from seeing color or knowing my own color, but my professor cuts me off before I can get that out. She says that when I say that I know what my values are and that I don't think I'm going to change my values, then I'm not being open. She says that values are something that we have to work on all the time, and that you can never live up to your values, and you have to constantly work to do better. And she says that people change all of the time and that our values change too. And I say that I've done a lot of personal work over many years identifying my values, and my primary focus is in trying to live them now. And I am also older than this particular professor. When I try to share that my values include the UT counseling values, the professor again cuts me off and says that I'm thinking in all or nothing black and white terms. I then say that I do not want to betray myself by compromising my values. And I say that I have been gaslit before. The same professor then accuses me of having no empathy. I'm mortified. I feel absolutely humiliated, even though I know that none of this is true. I freeze in a panic because this came off as a threat to me. A person without empathy is someone not fit to be a counselor. I feel like everything that I have worked for is going down in flames, and none of this makes sense. I know I have empathy, but if I say that, then she'll call me out as defensive. After a moment, I'm able to force myself to speak, and I thank her for the feedback. I didn't feel that, but I was pretty sure that any other response would have made things worse. My advisor gives me an insultingly remedial handout describing empathy and empathetic listening, and I realize that I'm being characterized as incompetent, emotionally unstable, and ego-driven. I knew none of that was true. But the cognitive dissonance of being told by two counseling professors that it was overwhelming. I also knew that I had to please them to make it in this program. My brain felt like it was on fire. Then they asked me to write an apology to my small group as a follow-up to the conflict, as though I was going to return to the group. I didn't know what I had to apologize for, but I also knew that I wasn't going to go back to the group, so I agreed to write the apology. My professor says that I'm also bad at counseling skills. Now, in our skills class, we're practicing on our classmates, which makes that a dual relationship. I know from ethics class that dual relationships in counseling are unethical and compromise your ability to do therapy. So I'm performing counseling skills as I was instructed, which is reflecting back what your partner says and seems to feel, but never asking questions. This style doesn't suit me at all. It's not how I learned to relate as a peer supporter, and it feels really robotic, but that's what they asked me to do. And I also got an A in this class. So I don't know what they want. In retrospect, I think what they were trying to do is break me down and destroy my confidence so that I would parrot back their social justice critical theories take on values. And I hate to admit that by this point, I was internalizing some of what they were saying. I began to feel bad about myself. I even briefly questioned if Buddhism was bad. And I did a few web searches at home questioning Buddhism until one of my kids points out just how crazy that is. And I felt like I was the problem child of the cohort and that my life experience was an embarrassment rather than an asset. It was awful. Thanks for listening. And if you would like to support my efforts to get my tuition back, my Give, Send, Go, and my store for mugs and things is in the description. More tomorrow.